Hello, everyone. So, we just have a few people here. I know I'm streaming at odd times, so... Oh, hello, Saucy. I assume that means that you can hear me, so... I'll just get started then. So, let's see. So last time we sort of followed Irina and Edgar and the whole deal with Castle Morn. Welcome, Gygax the cat. So we followed Irina and Edgar and the rebellion at Castle Morn. I guess... Let me just see what... So let's divide these questions into a couple different categories here. Number one, let's call these sort of cosmic questions. So there's those kind of things. I suppose the sun's role kind of fits into that. Kind of questions about the nature of the world, how it all works. And then we have maybe, what would this be? Political questions? Something like that? And in that we can put in no, let's see. Who was the hero of Morn? / why were they opposed to Godfrey? I think that's fair. I don't think it's clear. I don't think it's clear who they were. But given the... Because last time we talked about, so there was a siege. We actually don't know who was on the receiving end of the siege, whether it was Godfrey or the hero. I think naturally my inclination is towards the hero being on the receiving end of the siege, but I don't know if there's any... All we really know is that at some point Godfrey took over this castle, and now the castle is governed by sort of Godric's men, which would line up with Edgar being a banished knight, because Godric, Stormvale has those banished knights as well. And then the menials rebelled, as Edgar put it, the misbegotten. I think it's fair to assume that the misbegotten were either... Well, I don't know if it's fair to assume, but I lean towards the idea that the misbegotten were somehow allied with the hero of Morn. That Morn, the hero was... whatever his sort of quest for vengeance was, that lines up with, the lines about resentment in the Iron Cleaver, carried by the Misbegotten, and the idea that they then rebelled. So if we assume that there was some existing culture, Godfrey conquered them, and then they became the sort of the slaves at Morn, then then they rebelled. Something along those lines, but I think it's still unclear. It's also unclear whether this is really important, whether this factors into the bigger picture, or whether it's more of an isolated story. So, and then there's also the connection with Frenzy, because we have Irina and Hayeda, and that's a very odd connection that is still not well understood. And then I think in this stream we'll get over to the Ailing village where it's afflicted by Frenzy, and that's right around here, so potentially there's a connection there. And it kind of makes sense. Revenge, you know, the Flame of Frenzy being characterized as this sort of bitterness and resentment. And in the case of the nomadic merchants, you know, it's kind of a revenge. So it's thematically very similar. So that seems probably intentional. So we'll look at that. So, welcome Cosmos, and welcome Taco. So I did a couple things off stream, very briefly. So let's just look at what I grabbed. The Tarnished Golden Sunflower. So again, questions about the sun. And the sunflower faces the Erd tree. And yet it's tarnished, it's wilted and faded, which is interesting. Now that could just be because the Erd tree is dying, you know, the fallen leaves. Could be because maybe the Erd tree has sort of supplanted the sun, and this is, you know, this is not the natural order of things. I killed the knight here, Knight's Cavalry. And again, odd thing about the sun is that it actually does affect the world. You know, there are changes that happen at night versus day. One of them being that the Knight's Cavalry comes out. And we know that... I don't recall actually where this is from, but I think that it's explicit that we know that they work for Morgoth. I believe that's right. They ride funeral steeds, which is interesting. And they can summon their steeds back. We'll fight another one at some point, and I'll pause it to look at this. But they summon their steeds back. If you kill the steed, they summon it back with this sort of strange purple rift in the ground. So that's kind of interesting because purple usually associated with gravity magic. So that's odd. Otherwise, not much flavor here. We have Barricade Shield. Sir Neidhart, the greatest character of all time. Poison Mist. Those who dwell within poison know rot all too well. The death that begets life that comes to all equally. That is to say, it is the cycle of rebirth put into practice. Which is interesting. Welcome, Pietro, and Lodore. Do you say Lodore? Or is that Eodore? Can't actually tell. One of the problems with sans serif fonts being so common is that you mix up capital I's and L's. The death that begets life that comes to all equally. So it's interesting because there are, as I mentioned on the last stream, you know, there are so many different death rituals. And similarly, there are a lot of different, or it seems at least, a lot of different ways of dying and ways of being reborn. So, in terms of where we put rot, this is one among several. this cycle of rebirth. It comes to all equally, so it seems like it's more of the natural order of things. Rot is an intrinsic part of life and death. Otherwise, this is all stuff that we looked at last stream, so let's just start going. Can I level up, maybe? Yes. Just leveling up Vig for now. Okay, so let's head... So I will go and fight the Death Bird over here eventually. One thing that's interesting about the Death Birds is that many of them seem to appear on the fallen ruins of Farum Azula. The one here, there's one in North Limgrave. Where's that about? About here, I think. Several in Liurnia. But not all of them, because then you do get the ones in the mountaintops and Consecrated Snowfield, where there are no ruins. Although, the one in the mountaintops does not need it to be night in order to spawn. So that's kind of odd as well. And it's right near Castle Sol. The Consecrated Snowfield one... I don't know... Right, the mountaintops is in a graveyard. But that would sort of make sense if they were all around graveyards, but I don't know if that's true. This one, I don't think there's a graveyard here. Nor the one in North Limgrave. Or really most of them. We'll keep an eye on that. Pretty sure the only region they don't appear in is the Altus Plateau, which is interesting. Well, there is one within the outer wall of Lindell, sort of by the merchant's shack. Churches of America and Weeping Merchant and Erdtree Avatar. Yeah, we'll be heading west, exploring the west part of Weeping Peninsula. Other things that we haven't done... There's the Ballista, I can pick that up, but I don't think there's anything really interesting there. It mentions Tragoth, if I remember correctly. There's the Impaler's Catacombs, but I figure I don't necessarily want to go into every catacomb and every mine and every cave on stream, because so many of them are there isn't that much unique about them. So I'll pick a few to go in on stream, and then the rest I'll just kind of, grab the items and stuff. And if there's anything interesting, an interesting boss or some interesting unique property of one, then I'll do it. There's also Tombsword Catacombs. I probably won't go there. But yes, let's head to the Ailing Village for now. Isn't that one in a graveyard as well? Yeah, the Lendell one is in a graveyard. Welcome, Nuskowski. Hi, Crunchy, long-time listener, first-time caller. Just popped in to say I really love your Elden Ring content and appreciate all the thinking you've done for the lore community. Keep on keeping on. Why, thank you very much. So interesting that rats can become frenzied. It isn't just a humanoid thing. Although, just look at those eyes real quick. Although rats, I mean, you always have these things in the Souls games of the bottom feeders, rats and maybe bats and other things like that, sort of vermin, and generally these things tend to drop, souls or things like this. In Dark Souls, they drop humanity. The idea being that they're sort of eating the corpses, and so they imbibe the essence of whatever humans are. So they, these ones, they drop rune arcs, they drop runes, the rats in Elden Ring. So it's possible that they're just frenzied as a result of eating frenzied corpses. Something about the ailing villages. I'm pretty sure in the wooden yellow flame shield it states that the yellow symbol was used to indicate and warn others of an affliction in the village. So did the village put up the warning, or did someone else? Interesting. Yeah, we'll get to that in a second. We just picked up the Eye of Yellow. A shrub fruit bursting with ripened pulp. Grown in lands afflicted by frenzy, it's used for its pain-relieving properties. Though it's also known to be a dangerous intoxicant. And that kind of fits in with the whole frenzy philosophy of, the world is inherently full of suffering. It's too much suffering. It's all about sort of pain, the relationship to pain and suffering. Very bright red. Which may have made more sense with the... I think this was before 1.0. It's been a while since I played 1.0, so I don't recall. But at least somewhere along the development timeline, the frenzy eyes were red rather than the sort of sickly yellow. Which is also interesting because that is what the demi-humans, they get red eyes at night. And we also had the Leonine Misbegotten, it had red eyes. Welcome, Cecilia. Oh, interesting that it's known for its pain-relieving properties, because it might connect back to Midra and his research. Yes, Midna, someone else. Midra is, somewhat of an enigma. And an interesting thing about the frenzy guys. The trolls are like this as well. They have these long, almost tentacle-like beards, or maybe root-like beards. Yes. Otherwise, they seem to be not that different. Very... almost gives me a kind of monk vibe. Not that dissimilar to, like, the prophet clothing. Very simple. Although here we have some nice decoration, so perhaps a little bit more classy. Interesting. Sort of a shawl with a hood, and they all have the hoods as well. Perhaps to hide themselves from the sun? I wonder. There's cut content of Yura where he complains about the digging at the back of his eyes, a reference to, in real life, river blindness, I'm sure. Which makes it seem like the early concept of frenzy was more like an illness. Yeah, that Yura thing is interesting. I really like this sword, the weathered straight sword. Once very ornate, but just seen the passage of time. We'll get to Yura. I don't know if we'll get to him this stream, but soon enough. And so we have the yellow ember. Ember taken from the eye socket of a corpse. A sign that the deceased suffered from the flame of frenzy. This grape has ripened and burst. This is basically the same thing as the grapes that we'll get for Hyetta, but this one has just burst. And then root resin. Resin secreted from the roots of the great tree. The roots of the great tree were once linked to those of the Erd tree, or so they say. And it is for this reason catacombs are built around great tree roots. Now, I've already, and so many people have covered the great tree versus Erd tree thing, so I don't want to go over that again. It is worth pointing out, though, that, like, okay, forgetting about the Japanese, in English, this is pretty unequivocal. Like, I don't think there's any way you can read this and not think that there's two trees. And, you know, they have fixed item descriptions in patches, and the game's been out for quite a while, so... Alright, so now we come across the village itself. More embers. All gripping their eyes. Really gone mad. And we have this giant bonfire in the middle. So let's take a look at that. So... we have a commoner there. So who built this bonfire? Was it these guys? The weird neck ornament is a symbol of retaining Erdtree faith, so maybe interfaith conflict. Yeah, that would make sense. So they... presumably other inhabitants of this village? Now, there's a church. So, actually, let's go to the church first. So that might give us more context. And the church is called Kalu Baptismal Church. So we have rune. We have the Flame of Frenzy. So let's read that. Incantation originating from the maddening 3 fingers. The Flame of Frenzy deals damage and causes buildup. Okay, blah, blah, blah. It is only effective against Tarnished. So that's also interesting. One might think of the grace in the eyes as sort of suppressing this potential, because the Flame of Frenzy seems to originate in the eyes. And if those who have grace in their eyes, they've got the golden eyes, they are immune to the flame of frenzy, or they're immune to frenzy itself, at least. I mean, presumably the flame can still burn them. It's still like a fire, but the madness aspect of it is only effective against tarnished. So it's only if you don't see grace. And we have a sacred tear. Blessing of the Erd Tree, worshipped in the churches of all lands. This is but a faint vestige. During the age of the Erd Tree, these tears were used to spread the faith, for theirs was once a certain blessing. So, you know, once this church was really in use, and unlike the Church of Ella, for example, we do have a statue of America here, so we have these churches that seem to be named, you know, they're not churches of America, they're named after perhaps previous cultures, Kalu, Ella, Erith, these names, maybe some previous culture, you know, maybe a previous deity worshipped by that culture. Ella doesn't have a statue like this, but Kalu does. I think Erith does as well. So at some point this became sort of appropriated by America. Is there a baptismal font nearby, or is this place a baptismal church only in name? Yeah, interesting question. I don't think there's anything that would resemble a font, but I mean, the sacred tear being there could be related to that. I mean, I would assume this sort of chalice is meant to be drunk from, but the blessing of the Erd Tree. These tears were used to spread the faith. I mean, you could think of it as maybe a type of something in between baptism and like communion, sort of drinking the tear of the Erd Tree takes you into the faith. And then presumably that protects you against the effects of madness. So yes, interesting. Let's take a look at this statue. So there's America. The pose is obviously meant to evoke Christ imagery. We have palms downturned, and then this very odd sort of almost triquetra image behind her. I believe that is the same pattern as found on her dress, so I think it is just part of her dress. It is very odd to have this complex thing back there. That's not accidental. You know, on one level, it's definitely several rings. Could be serpentine as well. little bit evoking the famous Venus image, Venus coming out of the waves. Yeah, I mean, we see something similar in the intro. So I think it is, in a literal sense, it's her cloth, but that doesn't really answer the question of, you know, what is it meant to mean? She's got the circlet on her head. So, Queen Merica. Interesting. I think Merica was a sculpted keeper at one point and maybe still is, hence why she's found made of stone. Could be she inhabits these statues in the churches, kind of like Ronnie and her doll. That is an interesting concept. I don't know what to make of that, really. She has 2 armbands here, but only one in the statue in Mesmer's room. Is that correct? Interesting. Yeah, that's actually kind of interesting because it's almost like she's pinned up against this thing. I think potentially meant to evoke the Elden Ring. She's sort of tied to it, crucified against it. So we had a church which was then appropriated by Merica and Merica's religion. And then, for some reason, these must all be tarnished, otherwise they wouldn't be afflicted by madness. So, some people became tarnished, and they fell victim to frenzy. And then they turned on, I'm going to assume these are their neighbors, essentially, other inhabitants of the village, who remained true to the Erd Tree. Tied them up and burned them. Interesting. Flame crest wooden shield. Carried by soldiers of the village that is afflicted by frenzy. The yellow flame is the symbol of the affliction, serving as a warning to those who might approach the village. Interesting. And it's a sort of, I would say, early, maybe Celtic or Norse style of shield. This, I don't know what you call that style of shield, but it's not like a sort of metal kite shield that you'd find in a more medieval era, or late medieval, early Renaissance. This is a simple, more like a Viking kind of shield. Let's equip this, actually. And anything else here? We got some mushrooms. We got some Eye of Yellow. So, let's... The style of shield for when riding a horse. That is interesting. Geographically, what's going on here? But it's interesting, whatever story happened in this village, presumably, if Godfrey conquered Morn, now maybe this village didn't exist yet, but we basically have evidence of some culture that existed before Godfrey conquered it, and here we have a church which presumably by the name was an existing church, there was some existing culture before America's religion sort of took over here. So it would make sense to connect them. And then we have Misbegotten being affiliated with that earlier culture, and Frenzy being affiliated with perhaps the people who sort of fell out of America's good graces here. Good graces, yeah, that's a pun. Okay, let's move on westward. Let's see what else we find. So... And in fact, there are some Misbegotten up here. Let's go find those guys. Yeah, here we go. So that doesn't seem... That doesn't seem unintentional. It is meant to connect this village and whatever's going on at Morn. I think. Maybe it has to do... I don't know, maybe there is something about the hood, wearing the hood. Right, the frenzy is found in the eyes. Maybe seeing something or being seen. Because these guys are out in the open, you know, I don't know, under the light of the Erd Tree, under the light of the sun, if the sun was out. Well, and then there's the whole thing of the Weeping Peninsula being constantly raining. Sort of hiding the sun. Welcome, Ozsun. What's the move right now? We're just exploring western Weeping Peninsula. So, how do we get down there again? Light pinion, anything interesting there? Nope. If you were trying to avoid rays of the sun, you would hood yourself with the rays of the Erd Tree. Yeah. Ruin there. A couple little encampments seemingly related to the village. Ah, right, there's this little thing here. Yeah, let's go down here first. And then we will go back. I think the Revenger could have been the Stormlord. Hence why you find Fulgur Bloom and the peninsula is always weeping. Yeah, lightning strike. A lot of bats here. This is a little extreme. Bro. What the heck? This is far too many bats. Bro. Come on. Enough of that now. Okay, so let's take a look Holger Bloom is interesting. Let's take a look at these. Yellow flower that grows in lightning-struck lands, imbued with traces of lightning's essence. So that's kind of odd that lightning would just strike the land in a particular place. There are a lot of gravestones here. I wonder if that is why it strikes here? Or maybe it has to do with the bats? The gravestones are also very odd. This whole thing of just gravestones making up the world, essentially. All over Limgrave and Liurnia. And here we have some of these ruins, which are so strange because they're caked into the rock. And this would be evidence for some, massive flow of magma or something like this. This isn't carved out of the rock. It's like it's phased into it, which would suggest either lava flowed over here and hardened into rock, or some weird, like, dimensional shift thing happened where literally rock got phased into it. But then we also have the gravestones, and the gravestones seem to be almost made out of gold. And these are all over Limgrave and Liurnia, and I have no idea what to make of that. The peninsula is weird with its impaler catacombs. Also, there's presumably Sarosh's crest on the grafted greatsword, plus a moan grave, like, in the outer wall of Lindell. I don't know what's odd about the impaler's catacombs. Good afternoon, Tazo. I don't think it's all that odd. It's just one of many catacombs. The Sarosh's crest, I don't know if I want to say it's Sarosh. There's a lion crest on it. I think, because when you look at it, I think the idea here with this weapon, as I pointed out on the last stream, is that you have this original sort of claymore. This is the hilt here. This original claymore. And then you have all these blades grafted onto it, and you have this lion hilt sort of grafted on in order to accommodate those blades. But it is odd that it should be the lion when this is associated with the Revenger, with the hero who fought Godfrey. It could be Sarosh himself, I suppose, but this also becomes more confusing with all the divine beast stuff in Shadow of the Erd Tree, so I'm not really sure what to make of... I mean, in the base game, the only real lion stuff that we get is related directly to Sarosh, but then in the DLC, it's a little bit more confusing. Lightning Strike. One of the incantations of the capital's ancient dragon cult. Ancestors of the modern dragons. The ancient dragons had scales of gravelstone and wielded lightning as their weapon. It is said that they once attacked Lindell, the royal capital. So, I wonder if maybe the reason lightning is striking here is because someone of the dragon cult died here? I'm not sure why a scarab would have that incantation. Alright, well, let's go back to... Let's just go back here and we'll go through. Tarnished Archaeologist suggested in a recent video where On all the divine towers, the giant's forge, and the black stone structure we now see embedded in the rock were encased in molten lava. Yeah. I liked that video. I'm not sure I totally buy it, but it is very interesting. It is a very interesting idea. And here you see all the gravestones just embedded into the rock. It's such an odd decision. And you know, that's such a... Like, if you were being lazy, there's no reason that you'd put those there. That's very intentional. You just, you know, make more rock. Why have these gravestones here? They don't seem to make up the entire cliff itself. Also, it's possible they're not gravestones. I wonder if they're more like tablets, the stone tablets that, you know, you find in Marika's bedchamber or that Elden John has. Does Sherlock Bones have a specific case he's investigating, or is he a detective looking for a job? He is investigating the nature of the world. They're pretty gravy. Yeah, I mean, these ones definitely feel like gravestones. But, I don't know. It's just worth considering whether they're not actually gravestones, because there is sort of... It seems like there's writing on them, right? Which you would find on gravestones, but almost looks like what do you call it? The Sumerian language. I can't remember what that's called. Anyway, we'll just move on for now. Cuneiform, that's it. Thank you. We'll just skip around these dogs. Got a Trina lily there. We'll take a look at that. Got some demi-humans just chilling. Let's take a look at pictures taken moments before disaster. So demi-humans, very, very basic. He's got some kind of scale armor. 5 fingers. Not too much interesting there. Are these all the same type here? Girding themselves in sort of roots and leaves, which is kind of interesting considering the transformation into bushes and trees. What? Did you just fall over? Oh. Why are they... They're scared now? Fair enough. So that guy up there is shooting them. Rickety shield and glowstone. So let's just take a look at some of these items. Polished ruin fragment that shines brighter than rainbow stone. When you kill their leader, they go like that? Yeah, that's odd because I didn't... they were all just of the same type. I knew that happened when you killed, like, the queen. But I didn't realize they still had that behavior for just little groups like that. Reinforced with vines, so again, girding themselves with vines. Although, it seems like there is metal here. Let's just take a look at it real quick. That seems to be a metal center, right? So that would kind of indicate a more developed culture, something that can smelt, which would lend itself to the idea that the demi-humans were perhaps once more sophisticated and then regressed into a more sort of primal beast-like form, beast-like culture, more primitive. Although I suppose it's possible they just scavenged these. String. Merely a goodly length of string. That's nice. Trina's lily. A light purple water lily that is on the verge of wilting. A symbol of faith in St. Trina. Dulls the senses, preventing agitation. And that's an interesting thing because we hear from Fia that, you know, in death, there's no... there's no sensation? Something like that? So there's this... I think there is a sort of broad through line there of... it's sort of the Buddhist idea, like, life is suffering, life is dukkha. The nature of life is suffering and pain. That's unavoidable. And so then you have sort of several responses to that. One is just madness, which is affiliated maybe with bitterness and resentment towards life and vengeance, taking vengeance on those who wronged you, who caused you pain, and maybe towards existence itself. And then you have somehow the grace of gold, the grace of the Erd Tree can prevent that because it's only tarnished that are afflicted by madness. And then you have Trina's lily, which is associated with sleep, and this dulls the senses. So, I mean, one way to avoid feeling the pain of life is just to not feel anything at all. But then maybe that's actually closer to death. Sleep is the little death. The fact that they have falchions implies they have some smithing knowledge. Yeah. Right. Oh, yeah, the falchion even more so than the shield, right. It's an odd thing. I wonder if maybe they were armed by someone as part of a war effort. Well, we will find Kenneth Haight, who is attempting to ally with the demi-humans. But the rogue Godric Knight, who sort of took over his castle, who serves Moog, killed them, which is also odd considering the connection between demi-humans and the Formless Mother. Okay. So now we have some... see demi-humans disguised as trees. Just like we had with Bach. Which is interesting, given, I mean, the crazy, the crazy name in Shadow of the Erd Tree of demi-human Queen Mariga. Perhaps a connection to the shamans, sort of a more primitive culture, which has some natural affinity with trees, or turns into trees. I mean, even if it's just an illusion of some kind. I don't know how much it is actually an illusion, though, because it is odd that Bach doesn't seem to even realize that he's been turned into a tree. So maybe there's a connection there. And here we have a candle tree. So I pointed out in one video that this asset is reused in Elphael, except it's physical, and it's got a base here. The base sort of disappears. But this is clearly a spirit tree, similar to the sort of thing that we would find in the mountaintops. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Oh, I wonder. No. Normal looking flame there. No special color, which is also odd. You'd think it would be more spiritual. But we have references to Candle Tree and, of course, the Helfin. And then when we actually interact with this thing, we get this spirit guy here. We follow his footprints. And so that also seems to allude to the Helfin in that it's a form of guidance, and perhaps also the Erd tree. So the idea of a burning tree or a tree with some kind of fire. Did we just drop down like that? Some kind of fire guiding you. Seems Gracie. Just take a look at these footprints. Anything interesting about them? Yeah. You could say they may be golden, but I don't know about that. And the place that he leads... Now, I mean, from a game design perspective, the places that they lead are just sort of interesting little hidden caves and things like that. But perhaps it is actually leading to Grace. Mushroom or ghost magic. There may not be that much of a distinction. I like this type of treasure chest. Just take a look at it. Got some rings. It's a bit dark in here. I should drop a glowstone. Let's do that. We just grabbed one, right? Yes. Probably reading too much into it, but, you know, there you have 5 rings, or perhaps a flower. Let's see. Floral designs, I would say. This looks like a very cozy box. Okay. Rings with a metal boss in the middle. Anything interesting in this cave? I know we have a rune bear here, which is like actually the last thing I want to do right now, but since I'm already here, why not? Oh, let's read Cave Moss. Luminescent moss that grows in dark caves. Okay, nothing interesting there. Pickled turtleneck. And we know that turtles symbolize both... What was it? Tirelessness and also wisdom, because they're wise beasts. I don't think there's much significance to that. So the rats are dropping runes because they are eating other things, presumably. They're the bottom feeders. Kukri and some more glowstone. Nothing too interesting there. Oh, we also grabbed this earlier. I forgot about that. Gold-tinged excrement. Someone's excrement. It has a golden tinge. Very helpful, thank you. Gold-tinged excrement is a highly stable substance. It doesn't dry out, nor does it lose its customary warmth or scent. For better or for worse, it remains as it is. So the implication being that gold is a way of preserving things, of keeping them the same, which... when we apply that back to the whole thing about Tarnish being afflicted by frenzy might be interesting, because then we have two ways of characterizing gold. That it is somehow preserves, and it also keeps you from being taken by madness, by bitterness about the nature of the world, the suffering of the world. So somehow that's could be affiliated with preservation. It's like preservation of what, your mental state perhaps, but preservation of your faith in life itself, in your will to live. Because if you are bitter and vengeful about reality itself, about your own existence, then, well, maybe maybe grace preserves the will to live within you, and that's why it prevents that. Okay. So we picked up silver firefly. Firefly that gives off a silvery light found near bodies of cold water untouched by sunlight. So again, the sun. And we have a direct connection between the dichotomy between silver and gold and sunlight and night, which then could also imply that the sun somehow preserves things. Silverlight is considered to invite riches, whereas the gold firefly invites runes. So maybe there's a distinction there between, like, the material world and the spiritual world, the world of the mind, of the will. Silver light is considered to invite riches. Silver light. So there is a distinction between two types of light. It isn't that light and gold are inherently associated. There can be multiple types of light. But silver light is contrasted by sunlight. And it's cold as well. Association with coldness. Okay. Worst enemy in the game, maybe? At least they eventually fixed that glitch where you would just fall through the ground. Oh, like what was that? What was that hitbox? Oh, whoops. Oh, I love that attack. Zero preparation, that's great. What? You know, this is one thing that's always bothered me about, like, the bears, the wolves, dogs, and this has been consistent in all FromSoft games, actually, is, oh, come on. I'm gonna die to this guy. Is that they attack by hitting you with the back of their neck. Like, I don't know of any real-life creature that does that. This is so annoying. God, I hate that attack so much. That's straight from Osiris. It's the worst attack that Osiris has, and they decided to give it to the worst enemy in this game. Before I die here, let's just take a look at this room there. I wish I was in... Okay, too late. I'll look at a different room there. We'll get into the Mistwood eventually. Ocelot! Yeah. One of the worst design bosses in Dark Souls 3, and they made it like an enemy that appears in every region of the game. Love that. Alright, we're gonna go not do this right now, because I hate room bears. So instead, let's go continue westward. You think Square Off should be removed from the game? I like Square Off. What's the problem with Square Off? Rainbow Stone. Herba? Let's see that. Evergreen leaves. They give off a faint light. Okay. We've got a little owl here. Slumbering Egg, which I remember in 1.0 was called Moon Egg. Which is kind of interesting. Owl eggs that will never hatch. Prized as a symbol of the most sublime slumber, implying that the most sublime slumber is never being born at all. Interesting implication. Alright, we got all these guys. Demi-humans galore here. I guess we should fight this one. just a million of you guys. Oh, there's just so many of you. Well, let's take a look at this guy. So... golden eyes. That's just that one, though. And this one is covering his face as well. That's kind of interesting. You know, I really don't like this this basic club. It looks like a baseball bat. Like that. Got some leather. So again, more sophisticated than just a totally primitive culture. You have the ability to, you know, tan hides. Otherwise, not much to speak of there. That is just a million of you guys. So, random demi-human queen. We'll take a look at her, but I want to get in some better light. A lot of the demi-human gear could be plundered slash scavenged. Also, excuse me. Yes, correct. Come over into the light so I can get a good look at you. I think that should be good enough. So now she's wielding this staff, which we will get a good look at. More floral designs, clearly. And you know, this actually looks like that same symbol of that we find in a lot of places, like on the ruins of this vessel, this urn with sort of plant life sprouting out from it, and then a glintstone embedded at the top, so that's interesting. Yeah, sort of root vine designs, metal crown, and chainmail, and tattoos. So lots of tattoos. The tattoos seem more primitive. But chainmail, you know, again, could be scavenged, could be something else, and also covering the eyes. Here we have gold eyes, goldish eyes, which is interesting because I think when they go crazy, their eyes go purple, right? Also, herbivorous teeth, not canine teeth. So even though it's got these sort of, you know, kind of got a dog look to it, I think it's, you know, I guess that's the demi-human part. 5 fingers. More vines wrapped around. Very emaciated. She's the glow-eyed queen. Who actually proposed that theory that Bach's mom was the glow-eyed queen? I like that one. That's fun. Okay, so we get two things there, so let's take a look at this. Crystal Burst. One of the glintstone sorceries of the Academy of Rylucaria. Sorcery of the Crystal Cadre. Right, we already had something related to them. And then the glintstone staff, styled as a scepter. A gift once given to the demi-humans to foster peace, it can be wielded even by those of low intelligence. Sneered at by fools in the Academy. Only fools sneered at that. So, as we see in Mount Gelmir, there are efforts to sort of ally with the demi-humans or reach out to them. You have sorcerers there that seem to be brokering some alliance or at least trying to teach them or something. Which is also interesting given what Kenneth Haidt wants to do as well. So given that the Golden Order sort of adopted Raya Lucaria under its what would you say, under its aegis, its rule, perhaps that's related. Maybe the Golden Order, maybe the worship of the Erd Tree sort of spurned the demi-humans before, and Banner, yeah, that's a good word for it. And now people are reaching out to them. Okay. Let's also... Well, let's grab that one little item over here. Where is that? There we go. So, Shield of the Guilty. Shield made to venerate a maiden whose eyes were crushed by briars of sin before being reborn in these lands. Venerating the repose of the soul, the shield boosts focus. There's a couple interesting things about that. So we have the Church of Repose, which is on the mountaintops of the Giants, and that is where Okina attacks. And Okina is from the Land of Reeds. The starting samurai class has the Red Thorn Round Shield, which is a thorn connection there. And also his mask boosts focus, and focus is what helps prevent both sleep and madness. So repose, boosting focus. What would that mean? So if you're confronted with the intrinsic suffering of existence, so one response is you go mad, you become bitter, you become resentful at existence itself, sort of exemplified by frenzy. One option is you basically fall asleep. You stop feeling anything, and that way you escape the pain, but it also just sort of deadens you to anything else, and maybe you're sort of closer to death. But if you're focused, you're concentrated on some goal. So that is the will to live, the will to act in the world. That is sort of the third option that helps focus your mind so that you're not sort of pulled in either of those directions. And having your eyes crushed by briars is somehow related to that. Well, it is all about what you see, right? So sleep is the eye closing. Frenzy is the eye sort of seeing something it doesn't want to. And then the briars, the guilty whose eyes were crushed with briars, they saw the blood star in the darkness. Somehow that boosts focus. I suppose if you have if you're sort of focused on something like battle, you know, killing others, shedding blood, that is that is the will to live, right? You're testing your own life, you're engaged in something which makes you more alive because you're sort of putting your life on the line. So you're so focused that you don't get trapped in feelings of despair and resentment like you would with frenzy, and you're not trying to sort of escape it like you would with sleep. So it's that struggle to live, to fight. As to who this mask might represent, I do recall, I'd have to check this again, but I seem to recall in 1.0, or maybe just some early version, that this said it was actually a shield made to venerate a goddess whose eyes were crushed by briars of sin. So I know some people thought it may be Marika. Let's take a look at it. Oops. Oh. Get some light there. Let's go outside first. Let's get a good look at it. It does seem to be similar sort of iconography that we've seen with the maidens before, that wearing this kind of it's not quite a habit, it's but some kind of hood like we saw in the Church of Anticipation and in the Rises. Never seeing Marika / Mikla's eyes is an interesting connection to godhood. Yeah, I mean, the tricky thing with the eye imagery is that it is used for so many different things that it's hard to find like a fundamental interpretation. So let us move on westward. Ignore all this, blah 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 blah. Let's go up. We have some Miranda flowers. And I believe there's a crystal tear here. Where's that? Oh, Trina Lily. Interesting. Where's that crystal tear? Did I pass it? Oh yeah, there it is. Oh, welcome, Colt. I guess Melania has no eyes either when she becomes a goddess. Yeah, and she's sleeping and dreaming. So... this is an interesting place. The Church of Pilgrimage. We'll go inside in a minute. What does that say about the fell god who manifests as an eye? Well, he manifests as a face with a single eye. But we also have the St. Trina's torch, which has one eye. That is also odd. I mean, my immediate sort of instinct with that is having one eye is a metaphor for having like a singular vision. But I don't know. I don't know what to make of that. The mausoleum prowls over there, cradling the soulless demigod. O America, Queen Eternal, he is your unwanted child. So, unwanted child. So, there are 7 mausoleums, I believe. Some of them have bells, others don't. But the idea that they all contain soulless demigods. The natural conclusion would be they were others killed on the night of the Black Knives by after Godwin, because we know that others were killed. And here we have Radigan. There's the armbands. The armbands aren't snakes? I don't think so, but let's just double check that to be sure. It is interesting that they're sort of two crossed over each other. No real details to speak of on the crown, although it is... Oh, whoops. Crap. Hello. Actually, let's take a good look at you. Viking kind of helmet. Very rusted curved swords. Got some chainmail. The belt is somewhat reminiscent of the Alabaster Lord's belt, but I don't think it's... may not be similar enough. 2 horns may be related to the ancient dynasty bull stuff. Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting. They do have a... that is a bull-like configuration. 2 swords also. Yeah, two curved swords like the warrior starting class. So maybe something to do with flow. I mean, I get the impression of a marauder, a Viking, someone who came over the sea. So that would kind of make sense. And then we have that. The weapons are described as bandit scimitar. Yes. I don't remember if there's anything interesting there. I'll try to do some farming for items in my spare time, not on stream. Why do those who live in death all seem to be from the same era? Well, that's arguable whether they are. And then you also have the beastmen who live in death. Um, and then you have the connection with the Sun Realm. So, to be honest, I'm not sure. Just back on Radigan. So he's framed against this weave in a similar way to how America is framed against that swirly thing. Almost as if he's tied to it. And then he is coming out of these branches, which is also very interesting. That's very intentional, I would say. It feels like the militiamen maybe aren't. There are those who live in death with crossbows and those footman-type hats who don't seem very Sun-realmy. Yeah. I think there are a couple others over here, so let's take a look. That's a spear guy. It's a similar sort of basic rags. Nothing really to identify. Chainmail there, so similar. Very basic spear. Or possibly harpoon. It isn't like a nice straightened shaft. It's a bit more primitive than that. But that is a metal spear tip. There's another one. That's the same type. Blood grease. Let's look at some of these. Those who live in death and beastmen are Sun Realm, which is weird to consider if Ronnie was born to achieve the Night of the Black Knives much later. Well, I mean, we never are told that those who live in death didn't exist before the Night of the Black Knives, right? So the fact that Deathroot spread throughout the lands and it caused, it causes those who live in death, that could be that it's just achieving something that could have already happened prior to that. Like imagine, an analogy would be something like pneumonia. Like there's lots of different viruses which can give you pneumonia. So the fact that one virus gives you pneumonia, like one virus comes along and gives you pneumonia, doesn't mean that pneumonia didn't exist before that virus came along. Did I grab this grace? No, I did not. Let's just grab that real quick. So Church of Pilgrimage is interesting because this is also So this path is not the stone path with the Elden Ring sign on it, but it does connect to that. That path reaches all the way from Castle Morn to, I believe, straight up to Landell. So, the idea of a pilgrimage, maybe people coming from the west, arriving in the Weeping Peninsula, and then making a pilgrimage all the way up to Landell to the Erd Tree in ancient times. Anything interesting about these guys? We've looked at these type of guys before. Got that beautiful sword. We've got a banner. Doesn't seem to be particularly interesting. Neat little horn here. Very stylish. Got gems. He's got a lantern. Was this the church where Melina talks about the Tarnished leaving? That's a good point. I did not rest at it, so let me do that. See if she has any dialogue. Aha. First, let's upgrade this. We've got 2 of those, so let's talk to Melina.
Spoken echoes linger here, words of Queen Marika, who vanished long ago. If you wish, I will share them with you. In Marika's own words, then, after thy death, I will give back what I once claimed, return to the lands between, wage war, and brandish the Elden Ring, grow strong in the face of death. Warriors of my lord, Lord Godfrey.
Yeah, interesting. So, I mean, one, it's interesting that Melina can recite Marika's words. You know, she says the echoes linger here, and that could just be, you know, there could be just some sort of magic to memories sort of surviving in a certain place. It wouldn't be uncommon, but, you know, Melina in particular seems to be able to recite them. But yeah, she says that she's going to give them their grace back. They're going to grow strong in the face of death, and then return and brandish the Elden Ring. So she wants the Tarnished to face death. That's important. I had this idea that Marika was directly talking to Radigan here, telling him to grow strong in the face of death, the warriors of her lord, and Godfrey, which fits into the Morn storyline. The timeline wouldn't make sense, though, because Radigan married Marika when Godfrey was banished. So, presumably these words were told to Godfrey and his warriors sometime before he was literally banished. Because she's describing, right, the first part of this is in the third Church of Marika, which we'll get to eventually on the eastern coast. But she's saying, you know, I'm gonna take your grace, and then you're gonna go outside and die, and then you're gonna grow stronger because of that, and I'll give your grace back, and you'll come back and brandish the Elden Ring. And then, just following that, Godfrey gets banished, she marries Radigan. Why would Marika want anyone to brandish the Elden Ring if she mentions Godfrey as her lord? If Godfrey is her lord, that's pre-Radigan. Well, right, yeah, she's saying this during, presumably if it's not too far before Godfrey is actually banished, then she's saying this during the period in which Radigan is married to Renala. And just after this, she then, takes the grace away from Godfrey and the Tarnished, creates the Tarnished, essentially, and excommunicates them, expels them, and then Radigan comes to the capital and becomes the second Elden Lord. So it is odd because she knows that Radigan is not going to... I wonder how much Radigan knew. If he's completely aware of Marika's plan, then he must know that she plans to bring Godfrey and these warriors back to usurp him, essentially. So it's curious that this takes place in a church with Radigan. It's also curious that the church would be called the Church of Pilgrimage, but feature Radigan. So let's go over to the other one, because that has Marika. That's very interesting. This one is facing the Minor Erd Tree. I do believe Marika has a very long plan. It seems that way. Oh, yeah. Let's grab this, because this is a very odd little thing. So we've got a bunch of Trina lilies here. And then down in here, we've got pages. So some kind of royalty connection. Oh god, that's gonna kill me, isn't it? God damn it. Jesus Christ. Oh, come on. It's very annoying. NYC rats. Okay. Better kill some of these rats before we go in. Beast liver. Okay. So it's odd that we'd have pages here. I should have looked at them when they were still alive. But we only ever see pages in relation to Lendel and Raya Lucaria. I think. I can't think of any other place that they're affiliated with. And then, the most curious thing of all, the winged scythe. Sacred scythe resembling a pair of white wings deals holy damage. According to pagan belief, white-winged maidens are said to be death's gentle envoys. Consecrated snowfield and Redmane Castle. Fair enough. Okay. Right. Right. But I would broadly affiliate them with the Erdtree faction, then. That looks very similar to the symbol of Mikla's when he grabs you. Yes. And the odd thing is, so the wing blade, jump and imbue the wing blade of the armament with light, then deliver a slashing attack on the enemy. The white wings impede recovery actions using a flask of tears. So it stops you from healing yourself with the flask, which is Crimson Tears, right? These are tears of the Erdtree. So somehow it impedes the Erdtree's blessing, which is odd because it is, like, holy. I think it's the only holy thing that is like that. In white-winged maidens, death's gentle envoys. Who else is described as pagan? The serpent bow mentions pagan, some kind of pagan religion. I think we're in relation to the formless serpents. So definitely I think the implication is this is something from a prior age. It's sort of outside of the purview of the Erdtree. Black Flame and the Divine Beast stuff inhibits Flask also. Well, so there's different effects. There's effects which reduce the usefulness of the Flask of Tears, which I think the like the Albinarch Mask, I think Black Flame does that in terms of who it targets. I don't remember the Divine Beast stuff. If you're talking about the armor, maybe it does that as well. This particular effect, completely stops you from being able to use it. It's like the Hunter's Charm from Dark Souls. Totally stops you from being able to use your flasks. The only other thing which does that is the Albinarch Pot, which is also odd. But let's get a better can I look at this more? Oh, hold on. Right. Get a better sense of this. So we have a figure there. Can't tell if it's really a man or a woman. Hooded figure. That looks like a beard, so I'm gonna say... Honestly, that actually kind of looks like Elden John. It's like very low res, so kind of hard to tell. I wonder... That, I don't see the beard there. Let me see if... Is there anything else I can do to... Got maximum texture quality. Suppose we can bring up the shadows. Let's bring up these. Effects I don't care about so much. Shaders. Let's try that. Let's just see if that does anything. Oops. Oh, gotta time this exactly right. No, too early. Ah, too late. Just wanted to get it vertical. Okay, that's close enough. Yeah, that didn't really help at all. But that would be interesting if that was Elton John. You know, it was interesting because in the base game, the wings, that's really only associated with... well, you have the wings associated with, like, Melania, and the Valkyries, which would make sense as Death's gentle envoys. That's clearly, you know, that's what Valkyries did. But... besides that, there was Moog, there was the Crucible Knights who used that move. Yes, the Vine. Very similar to, like, the old Erdtree statues. That twisty vine around it. But yeah, now that we have this stuff about, like, the divine birds, I wonder... the more whitish color of wings on the side is like the wings of a dove, which signaled the end of the flood. And a dove is often associated with angels, so that would make sense. Very curious. Okay, I'm gonna have to... because I think... am I right in saying this guy's holding something? It almost looks like he's holding a tablet. If he's holding a tablet, I would have to say that's Elton John. It's hard to tell, it's so low res. I'm going to compare this against Elton John when we go down there. And Pagan, yeah, Pagan... especially with the stuff about the divine bird, I feel like that would make a lot of sense. This is like a product of the Rao civilization. Also, I wonder... well, we won't be able to get this for a while, but the... what is it called again? The Euphoria. Am I imagining that there's a similarity in the way it looks? I wonder. It's really a beautiful weapon. I really like this weapon. I might try to main this one. But let's see. Strength 16, 16, 24. Okay, it won't happen for a while. Anything else here that's interesting? Crystal tier. Yes, we'll have to go... we'll have to compare that against Elton John. The style of the weapon is so similar to those old civilization pillars in lower river areas. Maybe we should head to Shifra then. I kind of want to cover the western part of Weeping, though. I don't know, what else do we need to look at? Cave isn't that interesting. We'll look at the church. I don't know if it's worth it to warp to Lendel yet. Could grab the Eclipse Shield. Anything else worth doing here that won't be repeated? Well, let's check out this. Oh, do I have any keys actually? So we could fight this Zamor. So let's grab this Grace first. Okay. Here we have some Mausoleum Knights. Okay, Fourth Church of America. And the Cut Braid. I'm so glad that was actually a thing. The Cut Braid. Hmm. Let's fight this Zamor. Let's take a look at them. Actually, I don't know if I'll be able to beat him. I'm pretty weak right now. Let's take a look. So, first of all, weird. Everjail. Very strange. Still no real context for these guys. Got eyes. Purple. Or indigo. Night Sorcery. Night Sorcery is very dark blue. Slightly different color. Although it could be connected. It's not quite as purple as Gravity Magic, though. The runes here. Let's go inside and see what happens. So, number one, the sky's dark. Now, technically, which direction am I looking at? So, technically, the Erd Tree is actually still out there. But you have to go real far to find it. There's just basically like volumetric fog hiding everything. Is this a pocket dimension? I mean, it certainly acts that way. You know, nothing else that was out here. Those weird snake things, they're not there. And then you have this rift, which is very strange. Little pieces of rock, almost, or crystal, flying out. It's like a shadow on the ground. Very similar to the Rift Shield. And we know from Ymir that it was a rift in the stars that created everything. So Zamor, and it's got this, as most of the Everjail inhabitants do, it's got this sort of teal spectral hue to it. Very elaborate designs, complex civilization. Prisoner. some kind of scales, potentially dragon. The leg wrapping or sorcerer wraps, just like dragonkin. Very sort of ancient culture vibe, but very advanced ancient culture. Kind of reminds me of, like, Gwyn. The way that he... Yes, the shackles are... Shackles are interesting. You think you know why the Source Seal is where it is, but why this Moor has Radigan Scar Seal may be more important for the lore. Well, that is, the two Radigan ones are so odd. Because we have this one, and then Fort Faroth, which is like... Stop dodging me. Bro. Totally gonna die to this guy. Do the Zamor guys have white hair? I thought the idea of Godfrey being from the north and having white hair alongside Morgant and Godric was interesting. I believe when you get their helmet, it is white. This is the most, like, Dancer of the Boreal Valley moveset. I really hate their animations. Actually, Dancer's better. Although I wonder, dancing... I wonder if that connects to... What is it, Urana? So it is a very sort of elegant movement that seems deliberate. And actually kind of similar to the... yeah, very flow-based. Ice is literally water. Oh, I'm just gonna die to this, aren't I? Similar to the, what do you call them? The ascetics? Hornsent dual blade guys. Yeah, that's what I was thinking of. Crap. Crap. It's tenuous, but maybe it's another connection to the Radigan statue in Stormcaller Church. In Stormcaller Church... Oh, I missed the first part of that. So golden lightning, frost, and even death are intrinsically linked to the storm, judging from the line dancers and the death lightning description. It's tenuous, but maybe it's another connection to the Radigan statue in Stormcaller Church. That is interesting, because... That's right, the storm... has those qualities to it, or at least, I don't know, are those intrinsic qualities to the storm, or are they more sort of adoptions, appropriations? If they are intrinsic qualities, that kind of, it's very odd, because then lightning seems so tied with the ancient dragons, but not necessarily ice. I guess there are the frost dragons, but that's a more modern type of dragon. Lightning, wind, and water, intrinsic storm qualities. Yeah, but what about the death blight? Hmm. Hmm. Um. Ice is more of a weaker connection, perhaps. Ronnie uses ice. She's not very storm-based. Well, it's odd that death blight. The lion and Rao, yeah. It's odd that Deathblight should be associated with the storm as well. The Death Lightning description directly refers to the incantation as a storm. Well, I guess the question is Deathblight something which is an intrinsic part of the storm? Or is it more that it's just because of what happened to Godwyn, this has sort of perverted the storm? I wonder, actually, wait. Is Godwyn the Storm Lord? I mean, what other connection would the storm have with... What connection could you make between the storm and Deathblight? If, okay, either Deathblight is something that is a result of Godwyn's situation, or it's something that is already existed and he just sort of got put into that state. Now, there's an argument for that because deathbirds can cause death blight, and they seem to be something much older, pre-Erdtree. But it could be also that the fact that they cause deathblight is just by dint of the fact that they deal with death, and then they, and then death itself got messed up by Godwyn. Sort of like transitive property. You're dealing with death, death gets messed up, so now you use the messed up thing. Maybe that one later developed Deathblight because the aqueducts near it had their water flow interrupted and became stagnant? Oh, that's an interesting idea. Always comes back to Kigare. I heard a theory that Grandsax might be the Stormlord, so there is a Godwyn connection there. Maybe Godfrey had conflict with Godwyn because he sided with the ancient dragons? Nameless King, anyone? Oh, that would be very much in keeping with Miyazaki's style. The sort of the greatest warrior of the children, sort of respecting the ancient dragons because of their might and their nobility and their sort of stoic attitude. Godwyn didn't do anything. He was innocent. He's the victim. Justice for Godwyn. Or Radigan could be the Stormlord. But that wouldn't really... that wouldn't explain the Deathblight thing. or at least it would require a much more convoluted explanation. Wasn't the Nameless King a Stormlord technically? Well, actually, his Drake was called the Storm King, I think. The sun in eclipse is said to be the symbol of the wandering mausoleum where the soulless demigods slumber. And we also know that the sun, the eclipse sun, is the protective star of soulless demigods, as it holds destined death at bay. Death root is a part of the Elden Ring. It is the rune of death, just as the Erd tree is intrinsically connected to the Elden rune. Yeah, death root is the rune of death. The rune of death was plucked from the Golden Order. There's a nice parallel there because the Erd tree is now dying. So what happens if you cut off the roots of a tree? Well, it isn't able to feed itself, it isn't able to continue growing, so it dies. And that is exactly what the Erd tree looks like. The golden carapace doesn't connect to the roots. So Godwyn being the Stormlord is an interesting concept. Now, there's also the fact that Godfrey has a lion on his back, and his children have aspects of the Crucible, and that he stomps. And you have, like, the Hoarfrost stomp, like Horalu, his connection to the mountaintops via the highlands. So there seems to be this implication connecting Godfrey, or Horalu rather, to the divine beasts. It does come back to, why did the dragons attack Lendel? I think that is a question that is worth writing down. Ancient dragons attack Lendel. So why would they? The Sun Realm and the Eclipse. You can't have an eclipse without a sun, and there's not much of a sun with Erd Tree. Eclipse is pre-Erd Tree? Well, the eclipse is... Oh, I mean, also there's the connection of what's the word? Mushibaru, I think, which is the way the eclipse is referred to. It's basically like the being eaten by bugs. It's the same word that is used for the marred leather shield and the marred wooden shield. The modeling on Stormveil. It's the same idea. Commander Neil in the Stormhawk axe, the one Nepheli uses, big manifest golden lightning, which was Godwin's lightning. Stormhawk axe, right. Engval and Oleg are directly called Wings of the Stormlord in Japanese. Correct. Power of the Storm. And Nepheli says that something like there's a like ill winds or something are on Stormveil. He's tainted the very wind, something like that. As if the modeling is coming from the wind itself, which I wouldn't have put any stock in until you have the Divine Beast using Deathblight Storms. Stormhawk Axe and the Commanders both have iconography that suggests falconry. Banished Knights have both falcon and dragon imagery, though. I don't know if they have falcon imagery. They have a dragon on their helmet, and they've got a lion, very sort of elaborate lion. Eclipse, Storm, Sunrealm, Farum Azula, always in the light, in the sun, in the storm. Stormveil and Castle Sol are likely from Farum. Stormveil is constantly stormy, and it's got modeling. There is also a corpse of Godwin. I need to write some of this down. Okay. So we have Divine Beast Storm. We've got these different elements of it. Just normal wind. We've got lightning. We've got ice. And we've got Deathblight. Now, lightning is associated with dragons. Ice is associated with Zamor. Now, there's the ice dragons as well, but since the only ice dragon that we find is a modern dragon, the modern dragons have this quality of sort of adopting the nature of whatever they're sort of in. Like Exyx adopts this sort of rot aspect. There's this sort of the glintstone dragons where they sort of adapt to their surroundings. So, but the Zamor have literally an ice storm, right? And then Deathblight is associated with Godwin. Now in Stormveil, stormy, there's Banished Knights, who have Dragon Helmet, Lion Banner, Um, and exile soldiers, who, by the way, have a crescent moon axe. I don't know if that's relevant. And Stormveil is modeled by thorns and weird holes. Now there's the Japanese word mushibaru, which means eaten by bugs. Eclipse is... So, eclipsed sun is a protective star of soulless demigods. Godwyn is a soulless demigod. And it's the protective star because it staves off destined death. Godwyn is a soulless demigod. Eclipse is... Oh, also Stormveil has Godwyn face in the basement. Where are you getting staves off destined death from? Was that in the shield description? No, it's actually the other shield. I'm just remembering it. I'm recalling it from memory. It's the Eclipse Crest Great Shield, which says that the eclipsed... The eclipsed sun is the protective star of soulless demigods. Oh, I could find it. Hold on. The eclipsed sun, drained of color, is the protective star of soulless demigods. It aids the Mausoleum Knights by keeping destined death at bay. Drained of color is also interesting. The eclipse is Mushibaru, eaten by insects. Now what else was I going to say? Godwyn uses lightning. What? I'm gonna have to remember all these things. Death, lightning, Elden Ring. Let's look up that. A storm of death lightning. This golden lightning was wielded by Godwyn. So... Godwyn uses golden lightning. Death lightning. Well, I don't know. That seems to imply he had normal lightning but then died and it changed. I don't know. It is said that this golden lightning was wielded by Godwyn, who befriended Fortisax. Maybe he used death lightning. I mean, look, Death Blight is caused by death birds. Death birds found often around Farum Azula ruins. Connected to Twin Bird. Twin Bird iconography found in Farum Azula. I take it to mean that Godwin used a storm like that, which is Ancient Dragon Lightning Strike, but charged with death due to his death. I mean, that's certainly possible, but I would say it's no less possible that... I mean, actually, if you just take it at face value, it doesn't say that at all. It says that this Golden Lightning was wielded by Godwin. This Golden Lightning is Death Lightning. Incantation that channels the power of the ancient dragon Fortisax. No, but the Fortisax is corrupted by death. That's how I read that. Incantation that channels the power of the ancient dragon Fortisax, who is now corrupted by death. Suppose I can look at the Japanese for that. Find the oldest dragon cult prayer book in Farum Azula stating that it never reached the lands between. Did Godwin start the cult in Farum Azula? So, items. Let's look at this. So, the old dragon... Forusakse. Death, Marita, Power, okay. No, I think you're right. Is the power... The power is the thing that's corroded by death. Actually, wait, this is... Mushibamarita. Oh, how interesting. This is the same word. To be eaten by worms. So not just corroded by death, it is eclipsed. So this word, this is the word I was talking about. Mushibamu or Mushibamare. This is the same word that is. I'll just search up this kanji. So, let's see. Oh, well. That's just eating. Amare. So if we look in the what weapons, I guess. Oh, interesting. Is that the same for rot? Now that's gonna maybe okay. Maybe this is just a more. Maybe it's a more general term. It's a very, like, I guess just like corroded. But when you look at like eclipsed leather shield, this is what it's saying. It's corroded. Oh no, this is the marred leather shield and a marred wooden shield, right? So it is something which has been marred. It is something which has been corroded, the shield itself. But if you look at the this is the Eclipse Crest. So it's the same kanji. So what it's saying is that, like, this this symbol is the symbol of corrosion. It's the same word in Japanese. So, like, the reason being that, like, it's just like the etymology of the word for eclipse, this particular word for eclipse. I think there's a more scientific word for eclipse. Like, yeah, okay, so you have a solar eclipse, and it uses this kanji, or lunar eclipse, and it uses this kanji. This is, what, shoku? Also related to eating, which is interesting. But this more odd usage, where even is it? Mushibanu. Is like this very descriptive, poetic way of talking about it. It's to be eaten by worms. To be eaten. Mushi is literally like a bug. That's how you'd refer to a bug. So it's bug eaten, not just eaten, but bug eaten. So that's the word. That's the etymology of the word for eclipse. This is eaten by bugs, and so this is the same idea. Like, this is the symbol of something that is its corrosion itself, or it's being corroded. It's the sun being eaten. So would it be used to describe the state of a corpse, and so the sun is in the state of dying? That's interesting. I mean, the odd thing is why a sun that is marred is a protective star of soulless demigods. Why would it stave off destined death? The sun is being consumed. That implies that a non-eclipsed sun would lead to destined death? So if an eclipsed sun protects against death, then maybe the opposite gives it. A lunar eclipse, blood red moon, blood star, or just the sun. Just the sun itself. mean, Ronnie's moon. Ronnie's moon appears as a void in her ending. If the moon is the thing, because I mean, in real life, you know, a solar eclipse is caused by the moon passing in front of it. So if it's the moon that's causing the eclipse, the moon is the thing which is consuming the sun. It's draining it of color. And that would also make sense because the ghost in Soul refers to it as frigid sun of Soul. So it's cold. Cold and colorless. That would fit right in with the moon. So somehow placing the moon sort of absorbing the sun staves off destined death. The eclipse is directly referenced as a star in that description. Does it say the same in Japanese? Oops. Oh, right, that's soulless. So the soulless demigods. That's star. Protector star. Yeah, it seems pretty consistent there. Then what I'm wondering is the banished knights and exile soldiers affiliated with the storm and dragons and lion imagery. Edgar is a banished knight. Also, Neil and O'Neill are banished knights. Castle Soul connection there. The eclipse allows the dead to walk the earth. Even vampiric creatures could roam the earth unfazed. So it's like an everlasting resurrection spell if you can keep the eclipse going. The real question is, how does Godfrey fit into all of this? But Edgar is... Commander Neil is described to guard the castle after his long past master. Really? Neil was a lone survivor who commanded spirits. Also commanding spirits, that's a weird thing. Commanded spirits to defend his long past master. This aging general could not die, nor did he anywhere to fade away. Commanding spirits of the screen. Oh, he has dialogue, you know. What is it?
Glory! Brave knights!
Interesting design on the armor. Yeah, so what if Godwin commanded the banished knights? Would that make sense? Thing is, how does Godfrey fit into all of this? That's the part I don't get. Godfrey conquered Morn. Morn had a grafted sword. A lone hero fought for vengeance. The menials rebelled. The menials are slaves who had contact with the Crucible. Godfrey doesn't have a single aspect of the storm. He likely conquered the lands of storm. I mean, but he has... It's so odd because he has... His name is Horalu, and there's the Hoarfrost Stomp, which is the same thing as the Divine Beast Stomp. He's got this lion on his back. Face the Storm Lord alone. Did Godwin inherit his name after forming a union with the Stormhawk King? Kind of like Godfrey. What was the thing about Godwin's corpse? Cadaver surrogate. When Horlu says, I've given thee courtesy enough, he was talking to Serash? No, I don't think so. The lion only holds him back. But also, like, Serash is weirdly connected with Malekith and, like, the dragons. And then Malekith is Marika's half-brother, which is even weirder. Nefeli-Lu inherits Stormveil is because Horalu conquered it. Horalu doesn't use a single aspect of the storm. The interesting thing are the Stormhawk axes. But why does Nefeli have this affiliation with the storm? She remembers her first hawk. She remembers the smell of the storm. Like, she has a natural affinity with the storm. It's not... You know, whether... Okay, maybe that is just because Horalu conquered it, but, like... It seems to be more than that. Siege of Castle Morn. A lone hero fights for his vengeance, only to fall at the hand of Lord Godfrey. The menials have all rebelled. There's nothing that suggests Hora was the first Lu. Kenneth, who is confirmed royalty, talks about finding someone with proper lineage, and she chooses Nefeli. Godfrey is the patriarch of the Golden Lineage. First demigods were the Elden Lord Godfrey and his offspring, the Golden Lineage. Morgoth and Mohg are part of the Golden Lineage. Here's a thought. What if Godwyn isn't Marika's son, but he is Godfrey's son? On the topic of Godwyn and Golden Lineage, do you all think Godwyn is of the Golden Lineage? I think that is explicit. Where is that? Scion of the Golden Bow. Hmm. He is a demigod, and the demigods are supposedly all offspring of America. Well, however, there are the Radigan children, and okay, there's the Radigan America thing, but also with Radon and Rykard, it said that uh, Radon was amongst the children of Renala and Radigan, who became demigod's stepchildren after Radigan's union with Queen Marika. So is it Godric's Great Rune? Is that what I'm looking for? First demigods were the Elden Lord Godfrey and his offspring, the Golden Lineage. It's difficult to argue Godwyn is not Marika's, but I wonder about Godfrey sometimes. Godwyn inheriting Golden Lightning from Placidusix's lineage makes more sense in a way. Yeah, Godfrey is a demigod. I thought there was something that was more explicit about Godwyn being Godwyn being part of the Golden Lineage. Is it just that Scion of the Golden Bough? I mean, that's pretty... It's hard to interpret that in another way. But what I'm wondering is if the Golden Lineage is specifically it's patriarchal or patrilineal, then Godwyn might not have been Marika's child. Because, I mean, it is odd how Godwyn is different. He's not afflicted with these omen issues like Moog and Morgott. And we already know that Godfrey has this, at least relative in Nefeli Lu, probably daughter. And also even just the hero starting class. Godwyn explicitly got his lightning from his union with Fortisax. wander, the Lord of the Erd Tree casts a long shadow over the lands. Godwin is also referencing the Koi no Takinobori thing seen in Sekiro of a carp turning into a dragon. Makes me wonder if Godric took a piece of Godwin's flesh and tried to graft it onto himself. I did wonder that myself, but then this thing about the surrogate corpse in the DLC kind of confuses things. Didn't you bring up an item from the 1.0 that directly called the road leading to Stormvale Godwin's? Godwin's High Road? There is Godwin's High Road. Yeah. I don't know exactly where that's supposed to be. Just after until the procession with the big coffin passed by. I mean, it could be literally that whole road on the way from Morn to Lendell. You know, in Japanese mythology, there's Amaterasu, it's the goddess of the sun. But then she's got siblings. So there's Tsukiyomi. It's the moon god or goddess. I think there's different versions. Yeah, even their sex is unknown. There's Susano, which is the god of the storm. And there's another one who is... where is it? So there's Izanagi and Izanami. These are the sort of creators. Major Kami. Amino Uzume? That's not who I'm thinking of. Inari, Izanami. Now, who's the other one? There's the three precious children, right? So it's the sun, the moon, and the storm. But there's another child. Where's their... Descendants of Izanagi and Izanami. What am I thinking of? Alright. Ask GPT. Yuruko? Is that it? Ah, that's right. Yes. Born without bones. Okay. That was just mostly to satiate my own curiosity. Let me read some of these comments. Death corrupts and erodes. It consumes. Godwin as the Prince of Death shares similarity with another god, Melusine. Godwin is, however, found in an eternal city, so not completely without referential relevance. Umibozu? What, in Elden Ring? Oh, I think I remember seeing this video. Umibozu. Interesting. Only place I can recall anything fishtail-like is in the Divine Towers. Right. Right, there's those weird sort of creatures that are not easily categorized. Hmm. Horalu is the child of the god that was used to create the Fingerslayer blade. The same god that Plassey thought fled. That's certainly a new thing. I haven't heard that. The storm, the storm. What is it about the storm? Divine beasts are messengers of the heavens, and their rage mirrors the tumult of the skies, of which storms are the pinnacle. Storm into horns. Mesmer killed the divine beasts. Storm. The beast of the storm is from higher sphere delivered. Okay. I think I need to go eat something, but let me ask some questions here. One is, who did the banished knights serve? Actually, I don't want to ask that because I feel like the answer is pretty obvious. They serve the Stormlord. So then the question is, why is Miyazaki? Aren't there a bunch of dead banished knights in Commander Gaius' arena? Is that true? Is that true? Oh, holy crap. I did not notice that. Right, let's see. Those banished knights? Hmm. Okay, that's something to check out. I don't know, it is weird. Where is the Godwin face in the DLC? Um, there's 3 of them in the DLC alone. Is it just all the Death Knight things? So Death Knight, Elden Ring. Fog Rift Catacombs. I remember that one. Are there more than 2 Death Knights? Just 2. Fog Rift Catacombs. Just the Stone Sheath Sword. Protector of the Prince of Death's Cadaver Surrogate. What the fuck does that mean? Do all of Radigan's abilities have a lightning sound effect? I wonder if the way he dashes as lightning teleports is similar to how Godwin's Death Knights teleport as lightning. Placiduce X2. Hmm. Bears a representation of a decayed golden ring. How much do you want to bet that that's Mushibamu? Oh, how am I going to find this? Um, let's go here. Mm, how is Godwin? Uh, 30 medallion. What is this? Oh, that's blink bolt. What does it actually translate to, I wonder? Oh, did you find it? 155 and then 5 zeros? Thank you for that, he. Or a. Boom. Mushiba Mareta. Well, that's interesting. That's just a normal circle, is that correct? Circle. Ring. Elden ring. So... Where was it? This one. Bears a representation of a decayed golden ring. Like an eclipsed star? Like the sun in eclipse? Is the sun in eclipse the Elden Ring? What is the Death Knight armor? The head, right? It has that as well. The decayed golden wheel that adorns it represents their unbroken loyalty to Godwyn, he who became Prince of Death. Eclipse sun drained of color. Set the lusterless sun ablaze with the Prince of Death's flames. So, Godwyn is associated with the eclipse. And here we know that it's there's a representation dun, 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 dun. Oops. Modeled. So it's not just that the representation is gold. It's a depiction of a decayed golden ring. So this is a star. This is an eclipse star that is gold. If the eclipse is the protective star of soulless demigods and Rani is the moon, doesn't that make Godwyn the sun? The Greater Will sent a golden star bearing a beast into the lands between, which would later become the Elden Ring. The Pelly fights with dual axes just like Godwyn's Death Knights. Maybe her questline is a retelling of the Revenger story since she gives you the Arsenal charm. She finds a massacred village and enacts justice. Without realizing it was her own father, too. Wait, that's really good. Nefeli Lu is of the proper lineage to inherit the rule Stormvale. She fights with double axes, lightning storm. She says she finds the the arsenal charm, right? She finds it. I'm really losing my mind. Daughter of Godwyn. This talisman was derived from an unusual greatsword once wielded by a hero hungry for vengeance. I found it in Godric's crafting grounds. So it's more that Godric had it. Don't you find the brick hammer in Stormvale? Yes, you do. A laborer who led a rebellion and became a champion. The divine bird warriors, and indeed this technique, are said to bear resemblance to the golden crucible. Um, Okay, what would it mean? Sun realm. Seed of the sun. Okay. I think I need to take a break. Yeah, I need to think about this some more. Godwin's death, is that why Grandsack attacked? No, because Godwin defeated Fortisax in the war. And that's what ended the war. Godwin ended the war by befriending Fortisax. Um, okay. Yeah, I need to go do something else for a while. I'm losing my focus. Um, yeah, thank you all. I appreciate that this is an interesting line to go down. This is finally feels like potentially making some headway into the sun stuff, so that's good. Okay. All right, everyone. Until next time, take care.